Oh, man, I'm all
Good
sweaty.
morning, good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It's your father-daughter news show where we're going to argue about things we care about and it's Good News Tuesday. So Roger's gonna cover all the good stuff happening, and I'm just gonna cover the stuff that's happening.
Nothing but good news today.
Yeah, well, not for me, but for him. He's gonna have good news for you. So let's go ahead and get started with our good news. Alright, today on Before Coffee. Croatian police looking for 10 handball players from Burundi missing from competition.
And Donald J. Trump.
Wait,
stands
mouse.
for what?
Okay.
What? No
Now you can
audio?
go. Now you can go. Okay.
Donald J. Trump. The J stands for jumpsuit.
Robs and hiding at home. The Ukrainian men trying to avoid conscription.
And then more good news day. A Montana youth wins a climate lawsuit against the state for favoring fossil fuels.
EU denies reports it has rejected the UK deal to return people who cross the channel.
And in more good news Tuesday, new national monument spans 1 million sacred acres, linking Indian reservation to the Grand Canyon. Today, on August 15th, Indictment Day 2023, Before Coffee.
Oh, right. First news story. We've got missing handball players in Croatia. This is from Lorenzo Tondo on The Guardian. Police in Croatia are looking for 10 young handball players from Burundi who have disappeared before a world championship match. That's suspicious. The Primorje Gorski Kotar County Police Department said efforts are underway to locate the players and determine the facts of their disappearance. According to information available, the players were born in 2006 and had been staying at the Rijeka Student Center, which they left on August 9th. Police said the players had not returned their calls since. A statement from the Croatian police said, "The police have received a notification about the absence of the Burundian citizens who are participating in the World Championships for cadets." On Wednesday around 3:30, they left in an unknown direction. Measures and actions are being taken to find the missing handball players and establish the relevant facts and circumstances of their disappearance. The Croatian Handball Federation said that before the match with the Bahrain, the players left the campus without permission of their technical staff. The president of Burundi Handball Federation, Dauphin Dikobamye, said they are in shock. "Both we as a federation and the parents of these young players ask all those who can help us find them," he told the press. "I don't know how well we can return home without them." According to media reports, the players have planned their escape using their visas to seek asylum in Europe. Ooh. It was all part of their plan. Join a handball team and then never leave. In 2019, 2 Nigerian student table tennis players were wrongly deported to Bosnia by Croatian police, who mistook them for undocumented migrants. They had regular visas granting them permission to be in Croatia at the time of their detention. But police did not believe them and forcibly sent them to Bosnia without verifying their status. That day, Croatian authorities had intercepted a group of people attempting to cross the border with Bosnia and Herzegovina. Police in Croatia denied any wrongdoings and raised doubts over the table tennis players' intentions. According to the police, another Nigerian who participated in the championship had attempted to cross the border with Slovenia from Croatia a few days before. So, for some reason, a lot of these tournaments happen to be in Croatia, and a lot of these sports people use Croatia as their springboard, you could say, into not going back to their country. I'm not exactly sure what the problems are in Burundi at right now, but it must not be good if a bunch of... It's probably just a bunch of, what is it, 2006, so almost 20-year-olds? Almost 20-year-olds who just want to, get out. They see more opportunities that isn't playing handball, right, in Europe for them, perhaps. And so they want to just... I want to become a lawyer. I could never become a lawyer in Burundi, but I can become a lawyer in, I don't know, freaking Germany or something. I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my short first story about the handball players have gone missing, and I kind of hope they don't find them.
Yeah. As long as they're not missing handball players, they're missing a hand.
My hands are missing, yeah.
How do you play without hands? The missing handball. It sounds like a new sport. All right, Good News Day. We have re-indicted because it feels so good. I know I stole that from Keith Olbermann. I could have just done The Devil Went Down to Georgia, right? That fits. Somebody ought to just remake those lyrics. I think somebody has, right?
Already,
or
yeah.
maybe Lizzie Borden lyrics, because this is 41 counts of 41 different counts here, it says. But we'll do the story instead. We'll just do the story. News. It says here, Trump indicted in Georgia. Ex-president accused of leading push to overturn 2020 vote. We're going to start the story with the headline from the New York Times, but we're just going to read. We're just going to read the indictments, and we're going to read the names on the indictment. So, here are the lists of the people's indicted yesterday, along with Donald J. Trump. Some of these names you know. Rudy Giuliani, John Eastman, Mark Meadows, Kenneth Cheeseborough, Jeffrey Clark, Jenna Ellis. Now the names you may not have ever heard before. Ray Stallings Smith III, Robert David Cheely, Michael Roman, David Schaefer, Sean Micah Thresher Still, Stephen Cliffguard Lee, Harrison William Prescott Floyd. Oh boy, there's a $10 name right there, huh? Harrison William Prescott Floyd. Where'd you go to get that name? Travion Kuti. Sidney Powell, we've heard that name. Kathleen Alston Latham, Scott Graham Hall, and Misty Latham, aka Emily Misty Hayes. Those 18 people, along with Donald Trump, have been indicted. The indictments that Donald Trump is facing. There's over a dozen. Violation of Georgia RICO, which is the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act. So Georgia has their own RICO Act, which basically covers multi-layered, multi-state conspiracies. Haha. Solicitation of violation of oath by a public officer. Conspiracy to commit impersonating a public officer. Conspiracy to commit forgery in the first degree. Conspiracy to commit false statements in writing. Conspiracy to commit filing false documents. Conspiracy to commit forgery in the first degree. Conspiracy to commit false statements or writings. Filing false documents. Solicitation of violation of oath by a public officer. False statements and writings. Solicitation of violation of oath by a public officer. Another count of that. And false statements in writings. Yes. Trump and the other defendants charged with the indictment refused to accept that Trump lost and they knowingly and willfully joined a conspiracy to unlawfully change the outcome of the election in favor of Trump. Prosecutors wrote in the indictment, Mr. Trump was running again for a presidential nomination in 24. Early favor to win a Republican nomination has now been indicted in 4 separate investigations. Let's count them up. New York. We got the federal case in Florida, federal case in D.C., and now a state case in Georgia. And the state case, which is interesting, the governor can't just pardon him. It has to go through a pardons board. So he's kind of trapped if he's convicted. He's going like, I'm going to jail. And imagine the president of the United States if he gets elected, he's got to stay in jail in Georgia and nobody's going to pardon him. Oh, you always want to make a comedy show out of it. Anyway, there's nothing but indictment hysteria in America. Trump immediately went out and threatened the first witness he knew of, almost immediately. So a lot of people are expecting this state judge who don't give a fuck, clearly don't give a fuck, because it's a state judge, doesn't give a fuck about, oh no, it's going to appeal to the Supreme Court, blah, blah, blah. He's going to be like, no, we're going to lock your ass up if you don't shut your mouth. All right, your story.
We're going to lock you you don't shut your mouth. Okay.
No, he's threatening witnesses. You can't do that.
Yeah. 100%.
Gag orders are not new, and protection orders are not new, and keeping people without bail is not new. Because the guy in the documents case in the Pentagon is still being held without bail. And he's nowhere near as dangerous as old Diaper Donnie there.
Diaper Donnie. Okay.
He wears diapers.
In more corruption news, bribes and hiding at home. That's right. A lot of Ukrainian men are trying to avoid conscription as their country is being invaded by Russians by doing whatever they can. This is from Sean Walker in Odessa and Jamie Wilson. At the last military checkpoint before he exited Ukraine in April, a 39-year-old man from Odessa handed over papers showing he had a serious spinal injury, thus exempting him from military service and from the ban on adult men leaving the country. One of the soldiers said, "That hospital really likes its diagnosis, huh?" recalled the man. "I could see that they knew exactly what was going on, and it wasn't the first time, but they were powerless to do anything, so waved me through," he said. The man, who asked for anonymity to discuss the matter, admitted that he had paid $5,000 bribe to escape a potential draft into the Ukrainian army and service on the front lines in the war with Russia. "I knew there was no way I would be able to sit in a trench, so I took my savings and contacted a fixer." What is this, cyberpunk? Everyone knows where to find them. "I paid in cash. They sent me to the hospital to do a spinal MRI. The hospital gave me a medical report claiming I had a major spinal defect, and with that I could get papers allowing me to leave the country. I had the feeling that at every stage of the way, people knew what was happening and were getting a cut," said the man. The whole process took 2 weeks. The man was able to leave Ukraine and now lives elsewhere in Europe. I believe it is believed that tens of thousands of Ukrainian men have left the country illegally since the full-scale war with Russia started last February, many by paying bribes. On Friday, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky fired every regional military recruitment head in the country, citing endemic corruption in the apparatus. "This system should be run by people who know exactly what war is and why cynicism and bribery during war is treason," he said in a video address. Odessa has emerged as a particular hotspot for draft evasion schemes, with a recruitment official arrested after he was found to have $5 million in savings and a lavish property in Spain. It's like, I'll give you my apartment in Spain if you can let me leave the country. Across Ukraine, there are reports of corrupt officials willing to take bribes from people eager to buy their way out of the draft. There are more than 100 other criminal proceedings against enlistment officials. "The cynicism is the same everywhere," Zelensky said on Friday. "Illicit enrichment, legalization of illegally obtained funds, unlawful benefit, illegal transfer of persons liable for military service across the border." While the corruption scandal has made headlines, it hits an even more troubling story for Ukraine as the country approaches the 18th month mark since Vladimir Putin's full-scale invasion. In the first weeks after the invasion, hundreds of thousands of ordinary Ukrainians volunteered to serve at the front line in an explosion of patriotism that helped people keep the country independent and fight off the initial attack. More than a year later, however, many of these initial recruits are now dead, wounded, or simply exhausted, and the army needs new recruits to fill the ranks. By now, most of those who want to fight have already signed up, leaving the military to recruit among as much as more reluctant pool of men. Fathers of more than 3 children, people with disabilities, and those working in strategically important jobs are exempt from the draft, but everyone else is expected to join up if called. Crews of mobilization officers roam the street and sometimes go door to door to hand out notices. Viral videos show officers bundling men into vans to deposit them at an enlistment office. Some Ukrainian men say they do not relish receiving mobilization papers, but would accept it if called, as part of life in a country at war. But others are desperate to avoid receiving draft papers, and not everyone can afford $5,000 bribes. In Odessa, like in most Ukrainian cities, a Telegram chat group serves as a forum for people to share anonymized data about where recruitment officers, known informally as olives, due to the color of their uniforms, can be found on any given day. The group has more than 30,000 members. Every few minutes, a new tip-off drops. Pishnoviska Street, 37. The olives have arrived. There's a bus of olives outside the market. 6 olives walking around inside, handing out papers. Other people simply stay at home. A factory owner in eastern Ukraine said the threat of being grabbed by conscription officers on the morning commute meant some workers were scared to go to work. He said, "I met a guy who told me he'd taken from the street within a week. His unit was starting to attack a village near Bakhmut, and he told me, 'What the fuck? Is this the first time I've picked up a rifle after a week I go to attack this village?' He was shot twice, once in the arm and once in the back." Mobilized recruits receive several weeks of training before being sent to the front. Many are sent to Britain for brief courses in essentials of frontline combat, although the training often appears to be rudimentary. In Lviv, one man who was served with mobilization papers outside a supermarket in the city said he was conscripted, sent to Britain for training, dispatched to the front line, and then wounded, all within a 2-month time span. The stakes have left many people reluctant to comply with mobilization calls, and those who receive the initial set of papers often lock themselves away to avoid being dragged to recruitment offices. I mean, it makes sense where, some people, we're kind of in this quick gratification era of time. Oh, something's playing in the background. We're kind of in the quick gratification era. People want the war to be done already. Come on, I'm bored. Next thing, that's not how wars work. You don't just quickly finish a war because you want it to be done. A lot of people are in denial that they'll have to fight for their home. Of course, I'm one to talk. I'm a woman. Women aren't being recruited, because they make babies. So, not that those children will be available for a war until like 18 years from now, but it's there are 2 categories of people. One is already in the army, and the other is too scared to go outside so as not to be conscripted, and no salary will make them leave their house, said the factory owner. One young woman who, like most people when speaking about mobilization, requested to remain anonymous, recalled a scene in Kyiv earlier in the summer at a nightclub in the capital. A few minutes after 10 p.m., when bars and clubs are required by law to close during wartime, the club was raided by armed men in uniform, who told the women to leave. Then they handed all the men conscription notices. "My husband has an important job for his company, so he has an exemption. But my visiting friend did not, and he was terrified. He has gone back to a small town and has been sitting at home, scared to go out ever since." Many Ukrainians who have been serving since the start of the war see avoiding the draft as nothing short of treasonous. The country's political leadership said it recognized the mobilization process was difficult and wants to avoid excess zeal in recruitment, but said Ukraine had little choice but to continue conscription if the army is to stand up to Russia, which has mobilized hundreds and thousands of men since the start of the war. And yeah, they're not getting any troops. There are some people from Germany and I think probably even the US who have volunteered to help. But for the most part, they have to rely on their own population. There's no, French army coming to help them down the line. Unless Russia wins and starts invading like Finland,
well,
then there's going to be an army.
Alternatively, if Russia just takes over their town, they're going to get drafted too into the Russian army. And they won't even, you're a Russian citizen and you're drafted. Congratulations.
That's the end of my story.
Look for the new career and the dodging bullets. Is it my turn? Yes or no? My turn?
Yes. I said that was
okay, man. In Good News Newsday. What?
It's fine.
Alright, in Good News Day, Montana youths win. This is from ABC News. That's why you heard somebody talking a minute ago, because their video started just. Story's been open for 10 minutes. The video starts unprompted. Oh, okay. I don't even know where that noise is coming from. I had to find the video. Anyway, Montana youths win climate lawsuit against state for promoting fossil fuels. This is from ABC News reporter Stephanie Ebbs and Teddy Grant. The group argued the state failed to protect their right to a clean environment. A group of young people from Montana won a major case on Monday after arguing the state failed to protect their right to a clean environment by continuing to use fossil fuels. The ruling determined that the provision in Montana's Environmental Protection Act violated the right to clean environment, which is guaranteed under Montana's state constitution, by promoting the continued use of fossil fuels. The court said the provision in the law that prevented the state from considering the climate impacts of energy policies is unconstitutional. Thank you. In a sweeping win for our clients, the Honorable Judge Kathy Seeley declared the Montana's fossil fuel promoting laws unconstitutionally and enjoined their implementation. Julia Olson, Chief Legal Counsel and Executive Director for Our Children's Trust, said in a statement, 16 Montana youths between the ages of 5 and 22 sued the state, the governor, the Montana Department of Environmental Quality, the state's Public Commission Office, and other state departments in 2020 over Montana's fossil fuel-based energy system, citing scientific evidence that burning fossil fuels is contributing to global warming that already causes them harm, according to the lawsuit. The judge's order cited the scientific facts presented by expert witnesses that there is overwhelming scientific consensus that Earth is warming as a direct result of greenhouse gas emissions, primarily from burning fossil fuels. It has also laid out evidence that Montana's temperatures are expected to increase and that the increased impacts of climate change, such as heat waves, heat adverse impacts on young people's mental health and quality of life. Judge Kathy Seeley wrote that Montanans have a fundamental constitutional right to clean and healthful environment, which includes climate as part of the environmental life support system. Youth plaintiffs have experienced past and ongoing injuries resulting from the state's failure to consider greenhouse gas emissions and climate change, including injuries to their physical and mental health, homes and property, recreational, spiritual and aesthetic interests, tribal and cultural traditions, and economic security and happiness. This decision is based on a unique provision of the Montana Constitution that guarantees citizens a, quote, clean and healthful, unquote, environment. At least 3 other states, Pennsylvania, New York, and Hawaii, have similar constitutional language. There are similar challenges underway in those states, and Montana's decision will likely be appealed. Effective immediately, Montana officials will be required to consider the impacts of greenhouse gas emissions when making decisions for oil, gas, coal, and other energy permitting. Currently, state law forbids that president considering these impacts. So state law is in direct conflict with their own constitution. Montana officials said during the trial that in June that if the plaintiffs won their case, it would not change approvals for fossil fuel projects, according to Associated Press. We do not have the authority to not permit something that fully complies with the law, Department of Environmental Quality Director Chris Dorrington said, according to the AP. We are the ones that implement the law. We are not the ones that create the law, said the bureaucrat. As fires rage in the West, fueled by fossil fuel pollution, today's ruling in Montana is a game changer that marks a turning point in a generation's efforts to save the planet from the devastating effects of the human-caused climate chaos, Olson said in a statement. This is a huge win for Montana, for youth, democracy, and our climate. More rulings like this will certainly come. Another youth climate case against the Hawaii Department of Transportation is scheduled to go on trial in Hawaii next summer. Your story.
This reminds me a lot of, I can't remember which state it was, but there's a state when Medicaid passed, Obamacare passed, they put in their constitution, the government cannot force you to do any procedures and cannot do this, that, right? And then later they tried to pass a law against a transphobic law against trans people, saying we can force you to not take gender assignment surgery. We can control that you can do it or something like that. And then everyone was like, aha, but in your constitution you said the government has no control over telling me what I can do with my body.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that convenient for me? It's like you have to follow your own constitution. That's why you wrote it.
How ironical! It's like the people that passed these. Remember Sharia law? We're gonna outlaw Sharia law, which nobody knows what the hell that means. They just knew it sounded foreign. In the South, they went past a whole bunch of laws that said Sharia law is not gonna pass. Well, now what they did was they excluded their own religion for making laws too. So good for you. You made a religion not a determinant in determining a law. Good for you, Southerners. Good
Sometimes it just works out that way.
Finally got it.
Yeah,
but they probably won't follow it. Yeah.
Well, speaking of scary foreigners, the EU is denying reports has rejected the UK deal to return people who cross the channel. This is from Ben Quinn, the political correspondent at The Guardian. The EU has rejected reports that it is not open to a new deal with the UK on returning people who have crossed the channel, after a leak of purported discussion between London and Brussels. A leaked copy of a memo on discussions with the UK's National Security Advisor, Sir Tim Barrow, was reported to have included mention of an aid to the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, ruling out a post-Brexit returns agreement. Von der Leyen's aide, Bjorn Siebert, reportedly said in the memo that the Commission is not open to a UK-EU readmission agreement. However, a spokesperson for the Commission denied Siebert had said what was attributed to him in the memo, which was reported by the Daily Mail and the Times, two propaganda papers. We have checked. Mr. Siebert did not say that, the Commission spokesperson said, who asked about the memo. When asked on Tuesday morning about the reports and whether any refusal by the EU represented a setback, the UK Health Minister Will Quinn said government was taking a range of steps to quell illegal migration and one could not be taken in isolation. This is a hugely complex and challenging issue and one the Prime Minister has put as part of his 5 priorities, and I know he and his Home Secretary are determined to address it and stop the boats, he told Sky News. Don't stop all the boats though, because otherwise you don't get any imports. As Health Minister, I won't have been over any details of the negotiations with the European Union. But if you look at the details of the discussion we have with Turkey, with Albania, and indeed with the French, they're starting to bear fruit, and there's then more widely, if you look at the deterrent factor, again, this is making a difference. Okay, so they're not talking the European Union, but they're talking to everybody else. While the UK has reached bilateral agreements, including recent deal with Turkey to disrupt people smuggling gangs and tackle illegal migration, the UK is no longer part of return agreements between the EU and 24 other countries after Brexit. Yeah, Brexit sure did help that migration issue, didn't it? Rishi Sunak has pushed for bilateral return agreements with France, but Emmanuel Macron has said any deal must be at the EU level. Get fucked. The French president made clear during a UK-France summit in March that any return mechanisms would not be an agreement between the UK and France, but an agreement between the UK and the EU. While Sunak has continued to lobby other European leaders within the confines of the meeting available to him, including the gathering of the European Political Committee in Moldova in June, he has faced increasing pressure from his backbenchers to take a different approach. Like how we talked about, they might just abandon the European human rights provision and just decide humans don't have rights anymore, at least if you're British. So they might decide to do that. One such MP, Danny Kruger, told the Mail, "We have now tried legal efforts, technical fixes, and international diplomacy in an attempt to stop the boats within the confines of the European human rights law. If the EU won't consider a returns agreement, we will have no choice but to take back full control of our legal sovereignty." Okay, cool. Just some more populist talking points there. And,
legal sovereignty.
Yeah, you already have it, dude. The EU is not letting us do things. Yeah, welcome to life. Other countries can deny to talk to you. What a concept. Your story.
Okay. What the hell happened? Oh, my headphone cut off. Okay, I'm back. All right, and more Good News Day. New national monument spans 1 million sacred acres, linking Indian reservations to Grand Canyon. This is a story in the Good News Network. And Mr. Let's see, is there a byline with this one? Andy Corbally. I'm always linking his stories, it seems like.
He's just a positive
From
guy.
Yeah, well, it is the Good News Network. .org. Okay. 1 million acres of public land in the north, south, and northeast of Grand Canyon National Park have been officially turned into a national monument after lobbying efforts by American tribal nations. In English, it is to be called Ancestral Footprints of the Grand Canyon National Monument, based on the translation of the proposed name by the Havasupai and Hopi nations of Baj Nawajo Aita Kukvini, which means where our ancestors roam. I hope there's a really quick way to say that. Baj Nawajo Jakaviki. A new monuments protects thousands of cultural and sacred sites placed. This thing needs a sound X on it to pronounce these things.
Yeah.
The new monument protects thousands of cultural and sacred sites, places of natural beauty like spring-fed waterfalls or Gray Mountain called Dizilbi by the Navajo, which are precious to tribal nations in the Southwest. The 12 tribes that joined together as part of the lobbying efforts included the Havasupai tribe, Hopi tribe, Hualapai tribe, Navajo Nation, Yavapai Apache Nation, Pueblo of Zuni, the Colorado River Indian tribe, and the 5 separate bands of the Paiute. Being part of this announcement means everything to me, stated Interior Secretary Deb Hyland, the first Native American Cabinet Secretary, herself a Laguna Pueblo. After the establishment of the Grand Canyon National Park in 1919, the Havasupai people were driven out from their lands. Their story is one that is similar to many tribes in the Southwest who trace their origins to the Grand Canyon and to the plateaus and tributaries that surround it. These special places are not a pass-through on the way to the Grand Canyon. They are sacred and significant and deserve protection. The designation is subject to valid existing rights and will not prevent the development of valid existing mining claims. However, the establishment of the monument makes the moratorium on new mining in the area established under the Obama administration de facto permanent. The new monument will be split between 3 separate conservation districts linked via existing boundaries of the Grand Canyon National Park. The first will be directly south in the South Rim Visitor Center. The eastern portion will reach out to the northeasternward terminus of the protected part of the canyon adjacent to the Navajo Reservation. The final and larger section will cover all the country between the canyon north of the Supai and Kaibab Indian Reservation on the border with Utah. And that's our short but sweet good news as we expand a national monument for indigenous people to have forever and ever, or until a fascist takes over that wants their minerals. Your story.
Isn't that the truth? Okay.
That's usually what happens.
Fascist
Well,
takes
that's what
over.
happens.
Yeah.
Oh shit, they've got stuff we need. Sorry about that treaty we signed. Fuck that treaty. Go ahead.
It's happened, yeah. It's happened many times in the history of the United States.
Gold rush.
In culture news, the Edinburgh Fringe is back! But is it still the heart of the comedy scene? This is a article by Brian Logan. Somebody is crying themselves famous. Somebody has been forced to sleep for a month in a nuclear bunker. Somebody has replaced their labia with 2 sides of beef. It can only be the Edinburgh Fringe. A varied, attention-seeking, and all his life is here as ever. Beyond that, opinions diverge. Depending on whom you listen to, Fringe 2023 is an atrocity against mental health, social justice, and artists' bank account. Or it is a phoenix from the ashes rebirth of the world's biggest arts festival after the COVID hiatus and last year's tetchy partial reemergence. Cock an ear to the wind, you can hear the sound of pandemic demons being laid to rest. For 2 years or so, we wondered whether the festival would ever rise again. Crowds cocooned in dank cellars in a Greek city where everyone catches the fringe flu. Turns out audiences have responded with a resounding, "Oh yes, please." Box office income is said to be back up to immediate pre-COVID levels when the Fringe reached its zenith of bloat, and that is with a program significantly smaller than 2019. shows are selling, which tends to inoculate everyone involved, artists, venues, agents, and PRs, against the festival's well-documented downsides. Of course, the downsides haven't disappeared. A queer sketch group from the US called Alphabet Soup are sequestered beneath a Second World War base in the absence of anything affordable above ground. Staying at a nuclear bunker is crazy, one of them told an interviewer. Something long and traditional in American culture is fearing the Russians. I don't wake up a day without thinking of Putin. Not the ideal start for a festival day. Frustrations persist with Edinburgh Festival Fringe Society, which may perceive to be doing a little to address accommodation costs, particularly given the £7 million it is spending on its new HQ. Those who see all this as an unsustainable look of darkly to New York, where 5 prominent fringe festivals have shut down since 2015, most recently the big hitting Under the Radar, which was pulled this summer. Does the same fate await Edinburgh? It has long been predicted. You could point to the increase this year in comics doing shorter runs, or performing works in progress instead of finished shows, or not coming to the Fringe at all. None of last year's 9 nominees for the Edinburgh Comedy Award, nor the reigning Best Newcomer, has returned with the full show, surely at first. Prophets of Doom look to the new Roundhouse Comedy Festival in London, running simultaneously and featuring a host of big names, Sophie Duker, Jordan Brooks, Katherine Ryan, and see the writing on the wall in terms of Edinburgh's centrality to the comedy world. They might have a point. Had the Edinburgh Comedy Award not survived the near-fatal loss of its sponsor this spring, but the award, a big draw for comics, is back, baby, thanks to new funders, announced last month. In a swaggering speech on the festival's opening weekend, the organizer Nika Burns promised, "We're here to stay." It feels like an open field for this year's edition of live comedy most prestigious prize. Old-timer Frank Skinner, who won the award in 1991, is in town all month. His presence, telling knob gags in repurposed lecture theater at 66, is either an inspiration or a warning to this year's smooth-cheeked runners and riders. Who might they be? I expected American clown act Bill O'Neill to appear with his spoof circus daredevil show The Amazing Banana Brothers. Kieran Hodgkins, a multiple nominee in years gone by, will feature with his crowd-pleasing show about moving to Scotland, unless his television roles, including a part as Gordon in the BBC comedy Two Doors Down, disqualify him. The show being spoken of in the most hushed tones is Tragedy Plus Time by Ed Byrne, about the death last year of his brother, the comedy director Paul Byrne. But the Irishman is too well established to qualify for this award. He was on the short list in 1998, before several years of contenders were born. I would look instead to towns such as Julia Mulsey, the UK-based Estonian whose late-night clown show, Ha 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 Ha, an uproarious and tender communal therapy session, has just extended its run by popular demand. At a festival where hot gossip has surrounded the breakup of the comedy's golden couple Stuart Lee and Bridget Christie, maybe it's time to anoint their inheritors, Malsey and her partner Viggo Venn. Venn recently won Britain's Got Talent. Don't be against Malsey bagging a prestigious prize of her own. Owa Koch and Ania Magliano, Dan Tiernan, Lorna Rose Treen, and Leela Navibi are likely inclusions too, when the award shortlist drops on the 23rd of August. What are these acts talking about? You can pick out any theme you want, from the unimaginably vast Fringe, Care and Caring, in shows such as Ben Target's Lorenzo and Hannah Maxwell's Nan, Me, and Barbara Pravi. Cancel culture? Not so much. Comedians are bored with the topic for all that rage and elsewhere on the Fringe about gender-critical MP Jonah Cherry's booking at the Stand Comedy Club, or posters subject to puritanical censorship. I have seen a few shows by artists of color about the burden of representation, which must feel acute in Edinburgh, where audiences skew very white. But the subject feels bigger than that, as the identity politics is starting to buckle under the weight of its internal contradictions. We are living in an age of This Is Me, so fewer comics make shows about anything other than themselves. This is certainly true of Fringe newcomers, almost all of whom respond to the challenge of making the first solo show by creating a 55-minute autobiographical calling card. This is who I am, what is sellable about me, with a few jokes mixed in. This is still then the festival that makes novice entertainers' dreams come true, even if it pays to be strategic about the process. And even if some of them sleeping on spare sofas in out-of-town campsites or in underground bunkers get a bit mildewed as they go about it. Goodiness knows the fringe has problems to solve. So far this year has been easy to forget them. As artists and audiences meet one another by thousands, the sun shines, just a little, and the clouds of Kogan begin to disperse. So there's your little opinion piece there by Brian about the Edinburgh Fringe and how even though London is yet again trying to be the epicenter of something, Edinburgh is not going to let them become the epicenter of comedy easily.
I like Edinburgh. I want to go. I went to their blues. Remember the blues festival they had there? I wanted to go to more venues. But alas, time limits. Plus things sell out. You can't go.
Yeah.
There's no tickets available. All right, then. Well, today we do this day in history. In 1057, Macbeth, King of Scots, was killed in battle by Malcolm, eldest son of Duncan I. So there you go. Nothing to say except I remember when they said the Stuart dynasty came from Macbeth, which was a complete fabrication. I wonder where they ever started. But I was told that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was complete fabrication. Did not come from there at all. 1534, St. Ignatius of Loyola led companions who would become co-founders of the Jesuit order to Montmartre, Paris, where the first Jesuits took their vows. So, there you go. 1534, the first Jesuits. 1879, actress Ethel Barrymore, who was considered the first lady of American theater, was born in Philadelphia, the start of the Barrymore acting family. 1914, after 10 years of work, the Panama Canal opened for ships. So happy birthday to the Panama Canal. 1935, American entertainer Will Rogers and aviation pioneer Wiley Post were killed in a plane crash near Point Barrow, Alaska. Yep, there's actually the Oklahoma airport is called Will Rogers Airport. And there's also a Wiley Post airport in Oklahoma.
Wow.
Yeah, named after, aviator who apparently couldn't fly that well because he crashed. 1948, Syngman Rhee announced the establishment of the Republic of Korea, which is now known as South Korea. 1960, the Republic of Congo gained independence from France. Always happy birthday to South Korea. Don't forget that. And Congo, so at least two countries started today, maybe three. 1971, Bahrain proclaimed independence from the United Kingdom. So we had three countries that started today. Maybe there's more. I don't know. In 1979, after troubled production, Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now was released in theaters. It became a film classic, known for performances by Marlon Brando and Robert Duvall, whose character famously said that he loves the smell of napalm in the morning. But he says it, I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Yeah.
Smells like
famous line.
Victory. Smells like victory. In 1998, a car bomb exploded in Armagh, Northern Ireland, killing 29 people and leaving more than 200 injuries. The Real Irish Republican Army, the Real IRA, a IRA splinter group, claimed responsibility for the bombing, which was the deadliest attack in Northern Ireland. It was not the Judeans People Front, it was the People's Front of Judea. And little Python joke for everybody, because... Anyway, 2013, scientists at the Smithsonian announced the discovery of Olaguito, the first carnivore species to be discovered in the American continent in 35 years. The small arboreal animals live in the cloud forests of Colombia and Ecuador. In 2021, the Taliban regained control of Kabul, Afghanistan, as U.S. troops withdrew from the country in a previously arranged treaty. 1947 is our featured event. It is the independence of another country, India. So 4 countries got their independence today. If you're keeping score at home, or what do you say if you're scoring at home, or even if you're alone? After 3 decades, the Indian independence movement led by Mahatma Gandhi achieved its goal on this day in 1947 as a free and independent India was established, ending nearly 200 years of British rule. Birthdays today: Jennifer Lawrence was born this day in 1990. Ben Affleck was born on this day in 1972. Melinda Gates, Bill Gates' wife, American businesswoman and philanthropist, was born in 1964. And Alexandro Iñárritu, Mexican director and producer, was born in 1963. So he's turning 60. And Anne, Princess Anne, British royal, born this day in 1950. Another famous birthday, Napoleon. Oh no, yeah, Napoleon was born on this day in August 15th, 1769. The original Napoleon. Not any of them cheap imitations. And what what day is it today? Are you curious? Even a little bit. What day it is today? It is National Leathercraft Day. So
National Leathercrafting.
Make something out of cow skin. And it's also VJ Day. In other words, victory over Japan, where Japan just said, okay, stop dropping atom bombs on us. We give up. National Lemon Meringue Pie Day. So leather and lemon meringue go together, just like peas and whatever.
Peas and mash.
Peas and oranges. Yeah, okay.
Peas
National
and
meringue pie and leather. Okay. And the only other day it is National Relaxation Day, where I'm going to practice that almost immediately.
Okay.
Only done 4 days.
This has been Allison here from the Netherlands. Excited to be not relaxing all day because I don't have time for that. I'm going to be busy all day for the next week. And hope to see you tomorrow for some more Before Coffee, your father-daughter news show you didn't ask for.
And this is Roger. Gonna count indictments in a 41 indictment with 19 defendants. I'm gonna read that and count indictments and counts and go to sleep like they're sheep. I don't know. I'm not talking very well this morning. This is Roger of the United States saying goodbye on all the news of the comprehensive news of planet Earth on August 15th, 2023 edition of Before Coffee. Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.